And the current stakeholders you have now, do they agree with the gap that you have? And I think what we try to do as recruiters say, like, what are the top 3 things that are just mission critical, and which ones can you live without? And have you interviewed your internal team and exhausted, and really come to the conclusion with all the stakeholders that we just don't have this internally, and we need these 3 main things out of this hire?
Are you a scaling SaaS founder? Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those who don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where the go-to-market team takes your big idea, wraps it in messaging, pricing, and hype, but somehow still wants a Q4 forecast by Tuesday. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. Why do so many early sales hires fail? And what can founders do to avoid expensive missteps? I think we've probably all been there at some point. But we're going to break down the high-stakes world of building your first go-to-market sales team. It's not just about hiring someone with a shiny resume or a smooth pitch, because they all seem to have that. It's about knowing exactly what kind of sales motion your business needs and how to hire for that, not just charisma. We'll dive into why many SaaS founders rush into sales hires before diagnosing whether their problems lie in sales, marketing, or even product. You'll hear what separates a true hunter from a glorified account manager, and why your first few reps need to be scrappy door openers, not just relationship builders. We also tackle one of the most overlooked steps in hiring, reference checks. Because let's face it, most salespeople are great at selling themselves. That's why digging deeper is essential before bringing someone on board to sell your actual product. And we're not going to stop at just hiring. We'll get into the financial realities of scaling, understanding the gap between revenue and cash flow, and how it impacts your hiring decisions, and why some founders end up in cash crunches, even when bookings look great on paper. Whether you're weighing experience versus raw talent, wondering how to spot your first sales superstar, or maybe trying to avoid common go-to-market pitfalls, this episode delivers a tactical, no BS roadmap for scaling with confidence. Let's dive in. Our founder on Tuesday was Sean Schroeder, a serial entrepreneur and product strategist whose ventures span from venture studios to storytelling platforms. He unpacked how to build with empathy, why startup grit still matters, even in a world of AI, and how founders can create systems that scale without losing their soul. And our expert guest last week was David Ebner, founder of Content Workshop and author of the bestseller Kingmakers. David showed us why story, not volume, is what drives growth in today's content-saturated world. From brand trust to AI-powered messaging, this one's a masterclass in marketing with meaning. If you missed either episode, go back and check them out. Great stuff there. My guest today is Will Spengler, founder of Frederick Fox, a national recruiting firm built to challenge the bloated, outdated agency model. After seeing layers of red tape and overhead slow down hiring for both recruiters and clients, Will set out to build something leaner, faster, and actually effective. And he's done a great job at that. His virtual first firm now supports over 700 clients across the country, helping hiring leaders scale without the drag. But what really sets Will apart is his approach. He brings clarity, not cliches. High commissions for recruiters, real ownership, transparent operations, and zero fluff. Welcome someone who is re-engineering recruiting for a faster, smarter future. Will Spengler. Hey, Will, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, you built Frederick Fox as a lean, modern alternative to the traditional agency model, staffing model. What made you decide recruiting needed disrupting?
I think the way we set this up is we are almost set up like a real estate brokerage model in the sense that a lot of the staffing agencies are base or draw low commission plan. In our industry, a lot of senior level recruiters that have been doing it 7+ years, there's a big shift to go independent, start their own business. So it's becoming a very fragmented industry. And so what we offer set up as a real estate brokerage is a shared service centralized center. And we're able to pay out 80% commissions, which is 2 to 3 times the amount. You know, I think past that, we have the opportunity to grow a business within our framework with a real equity position for partners, people that want to build a P&L in with it underneath the Frederick Fox umbrella while still leveraging our shared service center. I think that we redesigned the model from a corporate W-2 large and gave it more of an entrepreneurial feel. And it's why we've been growing and taking off. So
That's very cool. And I think it did need disrupting. And I love your business model. How would you summarize what makes your approach different from other bloated staffing firms?
Well, I would just say we've eliminated the need for the mid-tier manager and all the layers of VP and corporate politics. Of course, as a partner in our company, you do oversee a P&L and a team, but we really only hire senior level people at least 5 years in agency. So we're not doing the recent grad that's drinking 18 Red Bulls a day and coming in hungover. We're looking for true pros, 5, 7, 10+ years agency recruiting experience. We're looking for the best of the best from the best firms, and we want to offer them independence, autonomy, the ability to be more nimble, take on more technology tools, and approach the business the way that they want to approach it, not always the heavy metrics, multiple mid-tier managers. In those environments, they get very comfortable. They get stuck in the way they do back office and politics and procedures. I think that we're extremely lean and automated as we really are a technology company as we have internal product that we're developing, but I think we have something slick and, we've been growing customers left and right. In the last 4 years, we've added 750 mid to enterprise level customers, and
Wow.
and so it's been a good success story. Been blessed.
Oh, that's great. I think your model is excellent because you have those senior people, and a lot of them do want to go independent, but they don't necessarily want to have all of the back office and do all that stuff themselves. And maybe making that leap of starting their own firm is a little bit too much, and this gives them all of the advantages without the disadvantages, it seems.
Yeah, I think and you've been a recruiter before. I think the biggest hurdle from a back office perspective is the contract staffing side, and just being number one, having the funding. There is an actual true barrier to entry on contract staffing from
Yes.
from a funding side, from a compliance side in all 50 states. A lot of good sales recruiters are great salespeople, great at finding candidates, but not every producer knows about Social Security, Medicare, unemployment, workers' comp, all the stuff you don't want to do, nor do they want to take the risk of a $300,000 payroll run. And there are things like timesheets. Somebody has to do the timesheets, the invoices. Somebody has to do the state
Right.
filings. So I was just young enough and just dumb enough to start this company. And just young enough in the sense that I had the energy, just dumb enough because I didn't know what I was getting into. And so, luckily over the last 6 years, we do have a controller, a senior accountant, 2 payroll and onboarding APAR people. So I like to say that I was the guy that thought back office was all smoke and mirrors. And then I started a firm 6 years ago and I realized, okay, I was the guy that had to burn my hand down to the bone and realize there's a reason accountants and HR and legal people have jobs, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Critical functions. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as when you're wired like a salesperson, you just think that you do everything and everybody else serves you, and I think you get a reality check when you really start a business. You know.
Yeah. Well, sales is still a very important role, and nothing happens till somebody sells something. What are the top hiring mistakes that SaaS founders make, especially in sales and marketing roles?
So what we service SaaS is one of our top three industries. So we do a lot of construction, manufacturing, and SaaS. So we do a lot of B2B and B2B SaaS just for uh, reference. But I think when it comes to sales, there's such a remote friendly environment, especially in SaaS. And I would say that people really need to spend the time to verify who they're hiring, check references, and just make sure that these individuals are what they say they are, have actually been in the B2B or B2B SaaS space, that they've actually grown gross margin, that they have a track record. And so I would tell people, make sure you double down on verifying somebody's um, the right hire, because salespeople have all the lips, not always all the hips.
Mm, that's good. I think that's one of the hardest hires to make is sales. And I've been in that world for a long, long time, and it's still difficult. And I think a lot of founders or SaaS founders are technical, 70 some odd percent. And so I think for them, it's even, just so much more difficult because they can definitely do really well for tech hires. But sales and marketing, if I struggle with that, then I think it's got to be, quite a bit harder for them. How do you help them figure out, what to hire and then when? I mean, even before we figure out the who.
So I think it depends on the stage of development of the business and where the company is at. But I think knowing who your competitors are, in your direct competitors, or just doing a map of how your product that you built fits and who are your like 10 core competitors. And I think that's what a recruiter is going to do is they're going to research, okay, if it's a startup, who's coming from a B2B or B2C SaaS startup in this exact product lane servicing this type of industry. And I think recruiters sometimes they're just willing to do 10 to 20 hours of research on your landscape. So I think any founder should always be researching, you can use ChatGPT, who else is doing this, what are their approximate sales, and just try to get as much market knowledge of your competitors, of where your market product fits. And I would say start to target their top salespeople. That's really what recruiters do. We do the research, we cold call, we email them, and we sell your value proposition.
I like that. And at what stage, if you're an early stage company, should you be looking at companies that are a lot larger, about the same size? I mean, how do you know, even if you're, your top 10 competitors, how do you know that you're getting the right people from them?
I think there's different types of salespeople. You've got the business developer, you've got the account manager, you've got inside salespeople. There are even like technical solution architect salespeople. So it depends on what your exact need is for the sale. So, you may, if you have all the leads and you just have too many leads, but you need someone that can interface with your customers and also do like technical pre-sales and post-sales, you're probably looking at more of like a solutions architect or a sales engineer, right? But if you're looking for you need to break into a market. I think you need the trailblazer. You need the business development person, and I would hone those interview questions around when have you started scratch? You weren't given 500 accounts when you showed up. Brand new greenfield territory. What's your strategy? What's your timeline that's realistic to breaking this? So I know that's a long answer to your question, but I think it depends on the company and the need and digging a little deeper to answer it. So
That makes a lot of sense. Well, when a founder says, I need a unicorn, I need somebody that does everything really, really well, or some sort of, in recruiter speak, a purple squirrel. What is your go-to response?
it's a great question. I think the go-to response is we will try to make that happen.
Okay.
But what who are the other stakeholders involved? And have you spent the time to just speak with the other people in the company? And what is the real skill gap that is the critical path for this hire? So I think sometimes what I try to do with clients is say, okay, who are your internal people now? What gap is not being met that we just must have out of this hire? I'll give you an example. Like, there's people that want to hire financial analysts, but then they also want them to be a business systems analyst. They also want them to be a database developer,
Right.
and a software engineer all in one. And it's like, okay, but
Yeah.
what is the real gap that's missing? And the current stakeholders you have now, do they agree with the gap that you have? And I think what we try to do as recruiters say, like, what are the top 3 things that are just mission critical, and which ones can you live without? And have you interviewed your internal team and exhausted, and really come to the conclusion with all the stakeholders that we just don't have this internally, and we need these 3 main things out of this hire. So we try to narrow a founder down, right, to try to figure out what is the critical skill set when they want the unicorn, right?
Right. I think that happens a lot, and it can be in sales, it can be in operations. I see it with virtual assistants all the time. I need a VA that's great at these 25 things. It's like, that's probably 20 different roles.
We've done a few of those.
There's not one person that is great at all that stuff. So it's really, I love that, figuring out what it is that you really need right now. What problem are you trying to solve with this person?
100%. Yeah, and I know that's a fluffy answer, but that it would just depend on that. And I love the VA assistant because there's a trend, especially in tech. I don't know if you've seen this, where people want to hire this chief of staff role. Have you ever seen that out there?
Yeah, quite a bit.
It's basically, and it's basically like the CEO. It's like the junior CEO. They're a personal assistant, executive assistant. They run all your operations. They oversee marketing. They oversee product development. And you read the job description, it's like, this is like a CEO job description. But that chief of staff is one of those like multifunctional. So that's an example where I have to sometimes say, like, okay, what's mission critical, right? And the personal assistant's a funny one because a lot of times people want them to also coordinate their wife's travel schedules or pick up the mail. And at some point you got to draw the line of,
yeah. What's business and what's not?
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's really good. Well, what if when you're asking that and you're doing the discovery, we're talking about a sales hire, and then the response is, I need more sales, therefore I need to hire a salesperson.
I think I would want to uncover how big is your current team right now? What obstacles are they running into? What is your target feedback? Like, why is your audience not purchasing from you? Is it value? Is it price? I say, hey, I need more sales. Well, it could also be a marketing exercise or a audience. It might behoove yourself to spend more time gaining feedback first on, is it the value of the product, the price, and is it not positioned right for the customers you're going after? It's like, I would recommend spending some time on marketing there, and that'll illuminate the type of salesperson you really need once you understand why you don't have more sales.
Oh, that's really good. I love that answer because most, kind of the traditional staffing companies would go, cool, here are 6 resumes of salespeople. And and that would be it. So there's no deeper dive into the why behind it, or is this even an environment where that makes sense?
Yeah, because it would, if you get somebody really good, like a lot of recruiters are just trying to get as close as possible, sling it as fast as possible. And there's a lot of great recruiters out there, but
Yeah.
I think I think there's a layer of questioning that's needed to get a, especially if it's a founder and it's a small company. Like I think if a recruiter's willing to really dive in and ask probing questions, I think that will de-risk the hire, spending more time digging deeper than just slinging over, best fit matches as fast as possible.
Yeah. Well, thinking about risk in early stage companies, how do you balance raw talent versus experience? Is one of those riskier than the other?
I know a guy that says you can blue collar your way to anything, and through elbow grease, research, being scrappy. But I think there are situations where you need a hire that's been there, done that, and has failed doing something before. So I think there's benefits to jumping the curve and getting a senior level person that has tried all these different paths, failed, learned. So um, I used to be the blue collar. I'm young. I'm 37, and I was always the guy that tried to climb the ladder before I was ready. But the deeper I get into my career, I gain more respect from wisdom of people that have been there, done that, failed. I think you can jump the learning curve if you can get that person. So I would actually lean more towards experience, even though I always prided myself on the blue collar, work hard, raw talent.
Yeah. And if you can find both of those in the same person, yeah, that's gold.
100%.
Yeah.
So
Well, you've seen kind of behind the scenes of lots of organizations, 700 plus clients. What patterns separate the good hiring plans from maybe disastrous ones?
the last 2 years, 24 and 25, it's been around hiring process. The CEO of Robert Half came out and said, we're experiencing elongated interview processes. So I think companies that do, I would recommend a 3-step interview process, but a lot of companies are very hesitant to hire. And we're seeing companies do 7, 8, 9 rounds of interviews the last 2 years. And I think some of the best organizations do have a 3-step process or a clear 2-step process where they align usually the technical interview first, then a panel, and then a final like cultural meeting to make sure there's a good cultural alignment. But I think a lot of the best organizations do a lot more front end work on exactly what they're trying to hire, versus so that when they get into it, they're more discernment in that hire and they get to the answer faster. I think it's the companies that are learning what they need while they're hiring that 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 is that is not usually an effective approach when you're trying to get the top talent in the market.
That makes a lot of sense.
I think when it comes to landing top talent, I've learned this, but like if you're super clear on your company and your company's vision and your company's value proposition to the employee, and you can demonstrate it with confidence, and you can express confidence in what you know that you're looking to hire and what you're trying to solve, a plus player is going to pick up on that confidence and is going to want to join you. If you're going to talk to LeBron James and you're not confident, they're not going to take you seriously. And I think sometimes people have imposter syndrome or don't have things fully fleshed out. But I've noticed when you are who you are, your company's at where your company's at, speak it with pride and clear vision and explain the upside to the A player. I think sometimes people almost are like intimidated by the A hire. And I think the way you get them is you speak with confidence and transparency and clear direction.
I like that. That is great advice. Ever notice how every leadership book tells you to take the journey, but none really show you the map? Well, after scaling multiple companies to over 260 million in combined revenue and working with over 1,000 leaders, I discovered the key difference that separates leaders who burn out from those who build unstoppable momentum. It's not strategy, not charisma, it's not even luck. It's relationships, specifically 4 of them. My new book, The Captain's Keys, reveals the stability matrix, a proven system that transforms leadership from survival into sustainable success. Inside, you'll discover the 4 critical relationships every leader needs and exactly how to build them. You can get your copy at thecaptainskeys.com, Amazon, or your favorite bookstore, and it's available in print, ebook, and audio. You don't need another playbook. You just need the right people in your boat. One of the things that you talked about before, and just within the staffing industry, and I think it's true in SaaS as well, is just kind of the difference in the revenue cycle. And so, SaaS founders that don't understand the difference between accrual revenue and actual cash on hand, and that those can be very different. You can have revenue that's at a hockey stick and cash that is, the reverse of that, where, because it just hasn't been collected yet, even though you can literally grow yourself to death. How does that trip them up during the hiring process?
Yeah, I think this is one thing I learned going into business. I would say, well, my accruals say I'm making money, but my bank account is going down. What's going on? And so back to the collection cycle is like having a clear understanding of your contract with your end clients, when it is effectively earned, is when, I don't know SaaS. I know there's a lot of like 606 ASC revenue recognition for SaaS revenue, and I'm not an expert in deferred revenue and exactly how that works. But in recruiting, it's usually based on the start date when it's accrued. And I think what happens to companies is you're making a lot of sales, your revenue looks good, but you haven't collected on it yet. Your expenses don't slow down month over month. So, and especially as you're growing faster, your sales are accelerating, your expenses are accelerating, and if you're not watching you could call it like a cash conversion, like your average days to collect, right? If that's extending and you're growing fast, you're going to be in a huge cash pinch. That's just one thing I've learned in business is like growing fast is great, but if the cash can slip away from you fast if you're not watching it.
That's good. What's your perspective on compensation structure, especially when founders want to lowball compensation, but they expect performance miracles?
So the way our model set up is that we do have the carrot of 80% when recruiters are usually used to, 20, 30, 40%, 50% commissions. So I think if you're going to lowball on base salary and not offer that security, or maybe you're not in a position to do this security, then I do think you have to give on the upside. And so we do see a lot of like small value-added resellers do some pretty creative things where they pay out really high percentages on gross margin, but they'll do like a very minimal draw. So I think if you can't give someone the security in a sales hire with a base salary, then there's got to be clear differentiated upside on the percentage of gross margin. And as the owner, that might mean that you don't make that much money, but you're capturing that client base and you're building that book of business, and there's got to be enough cash, and over time you can save up your cash to then squeeze down margin later on future salespeople.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How does that work? Can you still get A players in those kinds of situations, or is there some sort of a drawback, or do you get better players because they're betting on themselves?
I think you get better players when you find the people that are willing to bet on themselves. And there's just going to be a ton of people that say, "Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah,
You're not going to give me a 200K base salary or 150K base salary." And but I think the really good salespeople that really they know they can do the job, typically they outsell their base salary 3 or 4 times over,
right.
and maybe they've already saved a little bit of money or they're past the paycheck to paycheck period. Um, I always think that's a red flag when a really good salesperson is paycheck to paycheck. That it's sort of a red flag. So I'm not saying it's easy to find these people. It's very hard, but they are out there. I think a lot of people go to market, 3 or 4 or 5 people say, no, I can't do that. I would say push hard, talk to 40 salespeople, and you might find, there's somebody out there that's perfect, that gets it, understands the upside. I'm not saying it's easy, but like the really good people that can really do the job, in my opinion, why wouldn't they leave their base salary for a bigger upside?
Right, right. Yeah, how should founders think about back office functions as they scale up? And payroll, collections, operations, especially when they're ramping headcount really fast.
I think a lot of people try to get and it depends on the size and of the business, but I think a lot of people try to get a bookkeeper and they try to get an all-in-one or like a bookkeeping service. And that can work. You can at least keep the APAR. You get some form of a P&L. But one of the things I had to learn the hard way is you don't want to do it. Nobody wants to do it. But I'm a big believer in getting a senior accountant or a real controller to that's been at a small company in the beginning as they're scaling, that's like actually set up the chart of accounts, knows how to do not just a P&L, a balance sheet, a cash flow statement, understands the difference between accrual and cash, maybe had to Jimmy rig an HR department and get benefits. They're versatile. They're used to looking up things and tools to solve problems. If you get like the controller from the $200 million business, they've never really had to be scrappy. They've had people reporting to them. So
Right.
I think there's this like middle ground between like the big corporate type accounting person with the back office background. You really don't want that person in the beginning, in my opinion. I think you want to find someone from like a $10 to $20 million business that has gone through some pain at the like 2, 3, 4, 5 to 10 range, and they learned a lot of like bad mistakes along the way. And then they had to be scrappy when they were doing that. So long answer to your question, like I would overhire if you're growing fast. I would hire somebody from a 10 to 20, it depends on where they're at, but I would overhire accounting, make sure your operations are really good, and then let it rip on sales. Don't wait for sales to rip and then you hire the accountant. I think you've got to have it first. And it's like a field of dreams concept, like build it and they will come. If you build the operations, I believe the sales will come.
I like that. Well, as your own firm scaled virtually, what internal operations lessons did you learn? And maybe, the hard way?
Um, so quite a few. Yeah, I was young and dumb, right? But I tried the bookkeeper. That did not work. I tried the recent grad in accounting. I tried someone in their 30s that, I made a few bad hires in accounting initially. Now we have a great controller, great senior accountant. So I think I learned the hard way in accounting and finance and planning, that is actually a really solid investment, especially planning and thinking things 1 to 2 years down the road. But like I didn't, I think, I learned a lot about insurance.
Mm.
I general liability, cyber crime, workers' comp, and making sure that's up to date. I learned credit insurance. I took a big loss one time because I didn't have uh, my receivables credit insured, and I had extended credit to a customer that went bankrupt.
Oh,
So
wow.
I think, I long answer to your question. I feel like I had to. I feel like I got. There's so many experiences I had and am still having that there's just a constant learning experience. So
Yeah. Well, AI is definitely creeping into all areas of business, and recruiting is no exception. How are you using it, and where is it maybe a little overhyped?
yeah, I think every recruiter wants the one-click AI button. You click a button and a customer gives you $40,000. Everybody
Yeah.
wants that button. Everybody wants that button. And there's all kinds of tech companies trying to create that button. But I think where AI is at right now in recruiting is, obviously note taking and summarizing interviews, obviously, presenting information faster with more relevant bullet points. Um, the other thing that AI is starting to do is comb your database and auto match candidates to jobs. And it knows how to read the job description and AI match candidates. There are a lot of AI match, like AI sourcing tools where you feed it the information and it'll go allegedly and scrape all these different job boards, scrape the LinkedIn database, and it'll recommend top fit candidates. Which is interesting in recruiting. And there's also AI that will do like waterfall guess at contact information. And so you, there's so many different AI tools in recruiting that are trying to get to the one click button, but there's so many different features right now. I think what we've learned in recruiting is that you can't escape picking up the phone, calling a candidate, calling a client, and all the AI needs to be automated prospecting to do old school sales. So I think that it's still a very old school people business. And as much as everybody wants to make it a one click button, there are recruiters out there, zero AI in their toolbox, and they're running circles around people that are trying to set up the one click button.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe a long answer there, but do you still
Yeah.
recruit, Jeff?
Not only within our own organizations.
Yep.
So still involved in that to some degree, but not like it used to be. Yeah, that was something I did for a number of years, and it
Yep.
was fantastic. I wish I'd had the tools that are available today. And at the same time, I mean, there's so many. We were recruiting for a sales role here
Yeah.
recently, and 550 resumes. How do you even possibly go through that? And AI was really key in matching, what we're looking for to, top candidates, and get it down to a manageable list to review manually.
Yep.
So,
That, especially in the tech industry, I think, especially if you're fully remote, I have one client that's in like the cloud solution space. And they told me that the other day, is like, we're getting 1,500 applications, but we
nice.
just need it's like, we'll give you the resumes. Will you whittle it down and, get, do the intake with the hiring manager and then do the actual interviewing work and verify and demonstrate what we need. So I think you can narrow it down, but recruiting in HR is nobody. I get it. Nobody wants to pay a recruiter. I don't blame them, but it is a lot more work like it's work that you can't quite skip yet, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, there has to be human in the loop, and I think that's a good thing because at the end of the day, we're dealing with people, and so I think having people as part of that hiring process makes you more approachable, more personable as a company, and I think that's how you get higher level talent is engaging and having real conversations and getting to know people.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of Clay, if you
Yes.
guys ever use it. So we build Clay tables, and then we're in we call it like research and development, but like we've looked at Simply Talk and different AI agents that will call and actually interview. And a lot of, trust me, we're trying to stack and connect every type of technology to make our jobs the one click button. But I think to your point, candidates just won't engage at a certain point. Like, at least not yet. People don't want to interview with an AI agent. And I think the interpersonal connection, especially with an A player, you just can't avoid it. Someone at your company has to pick up the phone and at some point, and make the connection.
Yeah. Well, especially for important roles. If it's something that, we're looking for something that is maybe entry level or frontline, or we need 10 of something, then, maybe that's something that you can use a lot more AI. But I think the more important, the more critical the role is, especially in smaller organizations, the probably the less AI and the more human involvement there should be.
I completely agree. I think, AI is wiping out a lot of like industrial staffing jobs right now. Call center agents that you just have to get bodies on, to answer the phones. Like, I think AI is going to replace a lot of recruiters at the administrative, industrial, lower level. But I think still in executive search or senior level roles, there's a lot more unpacking. I think in senior level roles, it's easy to find people, but it's harder to whittle down to the right fits.
Yes.
You're looking for a chief financial officer, you get 6,000 applications. It's not hard to find them. What is hard is doing the work to really peel back the onion and, really make sure you get to the right person that solved the business problems you're trying to solve.
That's good. What advice would you give to a SaaS founder who's trying to build their first, say, 5-person go-to-market team?
We just actually worked with a GovTech client that was doing this, and they were trying to target, government and local and state customers. And I think when someone's building their first go-to-market team, I think what you really need is hunters and people that know how to develop leads. If the business doesn't have a lot of inbound leads and sales, I would make sure that those 5 people, especially if you're just are true hunters, they've done cold emails, they've done cold campaigns, they've demonstrated that they've cracked open doors that other people haven't cracked open. They're scrappy. There's a lot of salespeople that are amazing salespeople, but they need an intro, or they need a lead, or they need a demonstrated back history of, I would say don't get that person.
Yeah, that's really, really solid advice. Well, if you had a billboard for every founder hiring their first salesperson, what would that billboard say?
Check references.
I like that. And then tell me more about that.
Salespeople, every salesperson's the best salesperson that ever walked the earth. Salespeople are great at selling themselves. Anyone in sales, they know how to present, they know how to move their lips. So there's lips and there's hips. So I think when it comes to salespeople, you'll be completely wowed. They know what you want to hear. They've done their research. They're prepped, ready to go. Your best line of defense is spend the time, and I would say this, go overtime, checking references, calling those companies, verifying that they hit those gross margin numbers. Like, it's better to spend 2 weeks verifying somebody than get 6 months down the road, realize it was all garbage, and you would have just wasted 6 months of your business moving forward because you
Right.
didn't spend those 2 weeks verifying. So that's what I after 14 years of recruitment, no recruiter likes calling references because it's busy work. But after 14, I'm in my 15th year. I tell all my clients is like, if you want to de-risk this hire, we need to go all the way and we need to do the references. I've de-risked everything else. I've done a deep technical dive. We've verified employment, but backdoor references, calling, verifying numbers. If a salesperson doesn't know their numbers, then I would say they're probably not a good salesperson.
Right.
And verify that those numbers are true. That's my
How do you do that?
best advice. I think you should call the VP of sales or the head of sales at that company, or even reach out to the CEO. And I would really ask the candidate, I would say, I really would like to speak to your supervisor at your last job, as well as 2 to 3 other. So, like, I would get 3 to 5 references, but I would make sure you get, you don't want paid endorsements, right? A lot of these people will give you paid endorsements of a reference. Like, so
it happens all the time.
If you can do a backdoor reference, I don't know if that's a little unethical, but like, if you can get a backdoor or get a reference from the reference, that's one step removed from the paid endorsement, I think that's worth its weight in gold.
That's so helpful. I've seen so many sales resumes, and I've never seen one that was below quota. They're all, they're all crushing quota, but somehow, 47% of salespeople make quota, or some studies say less. So I don't know where all those are, but I've never seen one in a resume.
I think if they're unemployed and they were crushing quota, then there's something there. Like, if it smells fishy, it's a fish, right? Like, no company wants to get rid of someone beating quota. So why are they talking to you? I ask people, why are we talking? Like, why are you,
Yeah, I've heard every reason under the sun. And some of them are believable.
I think sales it's just it's tough. It's a tough hire to make. Even for us hiring internally, I always say every recruiter is the best, most disruptive recruiter on the planet. And so I've found that the people that have less ego and are more cool, calm, collected, and confident, those are usually the really good salespeople. They're gainfully employed. The second someone has an ego and they're talking about crushing quota, it's like, I think the loud person in the room is the most insecure, is my personal experience and opinion.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, where can people learn more about you and about Frederick Fox online?
www.frederickfox.com. We're about a $10 to $15 million business right now. Hope to close this year closer to 12. But we have 54 senior level recruiters. We predominantly do accounting and finance, technology, and sales recruiting. It's all senior level people. We're very close to having a bulletproof back office. It's a very good service for direct hire and contract staffing. So if you're looking to talk to a recruiter and you hear this, we'd love the opportunity to learn about your business and hopefully earn your business as a firm.
Awesome. We'll make sure and link that in the show notes. Will, it's been a great conversation. Pretty fun too. Thanks for being on SaaS Fuel.
Thanks, Jeff. Have a good one.
Thanks again, Will, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. You can learn more about Will and Frederick Fox at frederickfox.com. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And you can check us out on YouTube as well. Full video episodes, shorts, outtakes, training, lots more over there for you. And that's at Champion Leadership on YouTube. Thought leaders share. Share this episode with someone who's pivoted so many times they now identify as a carousel. Everyone who shares this week gets a wearable GPS that shouts, "You're on the right path," every time you doubt yourself, which is for us entrepreneurs like every 10 minutes. Yeah, it works with both business strategy and maybe even at IKEA. Who knows? What does it actually mean to build AI native systems? And why should it matter to your product roadmap? Next week, Mac Cherwala breaks down how he's helping companies from early stage to enterprise. What does it actually mean to build AI native systems? And why should it matter to your product roadmap? Well, next Tuesday, Mac Cherwala breaks down how he's helping companies from early stage to enterprise ship faster and smarter with scalable architecture, data engineering, and generative AI. If you're serious about building tech that lasts, this episode is definitely your blueprint. And then after that, we have Christian Jack next Thursday, who shares how he went from underpaid teacher to 100 million plus in sales by rewriting how sales professionals think, train, and lead. His belt-based sales dojo method is part psychology, part martial arts, and fully built to shatter income ceilings. I will see you next time, and as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaSfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.